on BBC Radio Scotland.
Yep, with you till 1:30 still to come. We'll try to cut through the rhetoric from both sides to find out if energy bills would go up or down in an independent Scotland, and some new research on whether there are links between video game violence and violence in real life and Scotland's first tea plantation. Now, hopefully we'll cut through the politics. Let's talk with Peter Strachan later on. But our top story, will Scottish people's energy bills be higher, lower or the same if the country goes independent? We want your text on this, 80295. In the last half hour, we heard from the SNP's Dennis Robertson, MSP, the Deputy Convener of the Economy, Energy and Tourism Committee at the Scottish Parliament.
I think we will have this integrated energy policy with the rest of the UK. I think it's in the interest of the rest of the UK to enter into that as an agreement. You know, it has been discussed before, and we've obviously outlined this in Scotland's Future programme. And the industry, I think, has been fairly comfortable with that. You know, and the discussions I've certainly had with renewable companies is that they're prepared to invest in Scotland because they see that as a good place to invest. You know, they see it as a bright future to invest. So I think this is just, I think it's politically, I think basically they're trying to politicise this whole thing for the Better Together campaign.
Well, belatedly, we can talk with Better Together's Tom Greatrex, Labour MP for Rutherglen and Hamilton West. Tom, thanks for talking to us.
Good afternoon.
You're just politicking.
Well, I mean, there's an issue here. I've been listening to what you've been talking about and trying to cut through the rhetoric and cut through the politics of this. I mean, let's just sort of examine what happens now, which is on my bill from Camberslang in Lanarkshire, my mother's bill from in Devon and my brother in Kent, we all pay a proportion of our bill to support the generation, low carbon generation, renewable generation across all of the UK. Now, as it stands, about a third of that support goes to generation in Scotland, and in Scotland we have just under 10% of the consumer base. So, you know, it's spread across everybody. I think everybody benefits from that because everybody in the UK benefits from the power that's generated, and in Scotland we benefit from those that renewable development and the jobs and everything that go with it. The issue is, if we decide in Scotland to vote to leave the UK in September, then what happens after that in relation to that support and that subsidy? And whilst the white paper asserts that a single integrated energy market would continue, doesn't say why and can't explain how it is that, you know, we in Scotland would be, why would people paying their bills in England, Wales and Northern Ireland pay on their bills to support renewable energy in what would then be a neighbouring but foreign country? And that's the crux of this issue about the impact on bills, because obviously if you pool and share those resources and spread it across more people, then the impact on each individual bill is less than if you were trying to do it all on the Scottish consumer base. And that's the issue around the support regime that exists currently for not just renewables but for low carbon technology, and which will be the case in relation to CCS as well in the future.
The counter-argument is that it would be in the best interest of the rest of the UK.
Well, I know this is what the SNP asserts and Fergus Ewing asserts frequently, but my concern as as somebody living and working in Scotland is I can't see how that is in the best interests of the rest of the UK. I can understand the point that is frequently made about the need to get the maximum possible out of our resources and to benefit renewable and to develop renewable energy. But if you change the relationship fundamentally between Scotland and the rest of the UK, as obviously a yes vote would do, and that's the SNP in their 80th year, that's everything they stand for, is to change that relationship fundamentally. It becomes a commercial relationship. The rest of the UK, at the times at which it needs additional electricity capacity, which is not that frequently, and I mean the way it's portrayed sometimes you suggest it was always the case, then they would have a number of options about where to purchase that additional power from. And then it becomes a commercial relationship and an economic decision. And is the excess power there may be in Scotland cheaper than buying in nuclear power from France, the interconnector which is already there and which is closer to the population centre, the interconnectors there are from the Netherlands and elsewhere. And that's where it becomes a very different position from now, where we are across the whole of the UK routinely underwriting all of the renewable development that happens in Scotland and elsewhere. And when it comes to offshore wind, for example, there is hardly any offshore wind in Scotland currently. There's a lot in England and Wales. And when it comes to it, if this happened and England, Wales, Northern Ireland needed to increase its renewable generation, how would it do it? Would it be more cost effective if they were doing offshore wind to extend existing offshore wind farms in English and Welsh waters, or to underwrite the development of offshore wind in Scottish waters, which everybody knows is the waters are deeper, the conditions are more challenging, and there aren't grid connections there already. So, it becomes then a commercial and economic decision, and that's why I think there's no guarantee. And I've questioned Ed Davey, the Energy Secretary, about this a number of times as Shadow Energy Minister in the Commons on this point, because I'm concerned about it. And it's been very clear there's no guarantee that would necessarily definitely come from Scotland. So if you want to maintain the pooling and sharing of the way in which we pay for developments in energy for all of our benefits across all of the UK, then the best way of ensuring that is by continuing to be part of the UK. If we decide to leave the UK, all of those things would come up in the air. And if in Scotland we were paying for that for our own development, our 30% of what's in the UK now on our own bills, that would have a significant impact on consumers' bills in Scotland.
Okay, last thing. And again, I'd like text on this in 80295. But Tom, just last thing. Obviously, I sense from some of our listeners they're a bit irked that what's happening now is we have the Better Together campaign will come out with a report. The yes side have to defend it. Both people come up and they argue. And in this one, you didn't even let them have a chance to see the report.
Well, the SNP published a report. I think Ferguson published a report on Monday, I think. And the UK government published their report today. But the points that are covered in this around this issue, around the pooling and sharing and the support for renewables, is a point it's not just been raised today. I mean, I've been asking questions about this and challenging the SNP on this for best part of 2 years, because it's an issue which becomes, if people vote to leave the UK, it becomes a very real and thorny issue. And I return to the point that I think I'm most concerned about as somebody in Scotland is how do we persuade or say to people paying their bills in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, by then, the UK is a separate country from Scotland, why is it that they should be on their bills subsidising renewable generation in Scotland? And I think that's very, very hard to see how you could ever justify that when it has that impact on consumer bills. And so the consequence of that will have a significant impact on Scottish bills as a result. And that's something which I think it's right for people to be concerned about and to debate and to discuss.
Okay, Tom Greatrex, thank you very much indeed. Labour MP for Rutherglen and Howard.